This is the Build Wealth Canada podcast, episode number 23.
Welcome to the Build Wealth Canada podcast, where it's all about becoming debt-free, accelerating your wealth, and taking control of your money. Now, here's your host, Cornell Schreiber.
Hey, it's Cornell, and welcome to the Build Wealth Canada show. It's definitely great to be back, and thanks for your patience as well. I know it's been a while since I published the last episode, and to be honest, I really just needed a few months off to recharge the batteries. As you can imagine, these episodes take up a lot of time to produce, and basically, with a full-time job, managing a software company, which has been growing and keeping me really busy as well. Plus learning how to be a dad for a first time too. I was just getting really, really burnt out. So things have really stabilized since then, and really to help ensure that it doesn't happen again, I'm actually in the process of hiring an assistant that's dedicated specifically to Build Wealth Canada, so they can help with the administrative parts of the show, so that I can basically focus on bringing great guests on, producing high quality content for you, and releasing that content on a more consistent basis. All right. So, anyways, thanks for sticking around. There's a lot of great content coming up. This next one is more so on the entrepreneurial front, on the freelancing front, or if you want to be a professional blogger, for example. This is what this episode is more so about. And then our future episodes, some of the ones we have in the pipeline, are going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk a bit more about investing as well, as I know that's a pretty big area of interest too for Canadians. All right, so to kick things off, I finally finished the free step-by-step video course on how to start your own business here in Canada and how to build your own website for that business. And basically, this course is different than what you might have already seen out there online, that built by Americans, basically, because this one is specifically for Canadians, which is important because Canada has its own sets of rules, its own kind of regulations, and what you need to know about starting a business. And we're actually really fortunate in that it's really easy to actually start kind of a side hustle in Canada, a lot easier than some of the other people in other countries that I've spoken to. So definitely something of interest. And also, if you do want to have a Canadian side business, then you also want that .ca domain name, which can really help you with the the search results. And there's a sort of a specific way to get it, and it's only really available for Canadians as well. So I show you in the video. It's a step-by-step video guide on how you can actually get that, so you can show up higher in those search results, if you're dealing with a lot of Canadian clients, for example. Also, what's particularly neat about the course is that I did actually build it for a real live business. So this is actually, I built the site from scratch for a business that's actually fully functioning. The site's up there right now. So this isn't some hypothetical kind of imaginary business that I'm building a website for. You actually get to see how I built it step by step while I explain what I'm doing, so that you can actually follow along and build your own site with me. So I thought that was pretty neat. All right, and I really haven't seen an in-depth guide like this out there for somebody that actually takes you through the whole process from beginning to end. So I'm sure you'll find it really, really valuable, whether you want to earn income on the side by being a freelancer, or maybe you want to be a contractor of some sort, or or an online entrepreneur, or maybe an author, or even if you're not in that entrepreneurial, you don't have those entrepreneurial ambitions, but maybe you would like to have just a site for yourself, for your portfolio, so that if you're ever looking for another job, or, if you want to be contacted by headhunters, let's say, and people are, if they're looking for someone to hire, well, your site's up there. It has you, it has your portfolio, has your credentials, so that people can find you easier, and really help you, maybe get that promotion or help you get a new job, so it's definitely good, I think, to have your own site anyway, just to sort of show off your skills and your portfolio. So, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, I think this can be, a lot of help to you. And I think I said before, the guide is totally free. You don't even have to, give me your email to get it or anything like that. And you can basically get the full course over at buildwealthcanada.ca/business. Or if you want just the site component, so just to learn how to build a site, then go to buildwealthcanada.ca/build. All right. So buildwealthcanada.ca/business if you want to learn everything step by step from starting your own business. Or if you just want the site component, it's buildwealthcanada.ca/build. All right. So go check that out if you're interested. I'm sure you'll love it. And now let's get into the show. So, my guest today is Miranda, who is basically at the top of the heap when it comes to being a freelance writer and a professional blogger. She is the author of her book called Confessions of a Professional Blogger, which I've read and really enjoyed. And she has basically achieved what bloggers and writers just starting off are hoping to achieve. So I thought it would be great to get her on the show and really to give you some advice to, aspiring aspiring freelancers and aspiring bloggers. Miranda's also really honest, so it's actually really great to hear someone tell it like it is instead of hearing some of that fairy tale advice you might have heard from other people, saying, oh, it's just easy, it barely takes any time. So Miranda kind of gives you sort of the truth, the cold hard truth about kind of what's involved and sort of, if you want to get to that level, how you can do it. All right, so here are some great tips for you from Miranda Marquardt. All right, guys, so we did have a couple audio issues with some of the questions, and so what I did is actually re-recorded some of the questions I asked Miranda just so that you could hear it more clearly, because I think we're getting a little disruption in our internet connection. So when you hear my voice sounding a bit different through different parts of the video, that's why it's just me re-recording it. So the first question, actually, I didn't come out as clearly because of that. So basically the question was, Miranda, you've already reached a level that a lot of writers, bloggers, and freelancers wish that they could get to. You basically get to earn a great income while working from home or beach or wherever you want. You get to set your own hours too, and you have the time flexibility that you get to work on what you want, when you want. Can you tell us a bit more about your story and how you got to that level?
Yeah, so I became a writer. I wanted to be able to work from home and kind of do my own thing. And so I got my degree in journalism and then decided that I was going to look online and try and work online. And that's sort of how things snowballed. I started doing keyword articles online. This was back in 2005. This was 10 years ago. This is my 10th year as an online writer. And
nice.
So I started out doing these keyword articles for just random things because search was new, online writing was new, everything about this whole online marketing thing was new. And so that's what I started out doing. But then blogs started taking off and things started to shift and content started to become more concrete. And then from there, I just started just getting more and more gigs. And since I was sort of in there at the beginning, I was just kind of a natural presence already. So it kind of worked that way. And part of it was just, this is what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to do it, and I wanted to make it happen. And so that's what I did. I started getting online and looking for online jobs, and, no job was too crappy and no keyword article was, too awful to do. So here I am now.
Yeah, that's great. And so you're kind of in a different scenario because I think a lot of people, when they think of being a, let's say, professional blogger, what comes to mind is some of these, big time bloggers that are, pretty famous at this point, and they have their own blog and they bring in a lot of traffic and they're probably making money off affiliate income or advertising or both, right? And that's kind of, I think, for most of us, that's sort of the image when we think of someone like yourself, that you're a blogger, you're a full-time professional blogger. But in your case, you're actually doing something different, where you're more so of a freelance writer, where you still have your own site, you still have your own blog, but it sounds like most of your income actually comes from being a freelance writer and writing for these other sort of big time blogs and different locations. Can you maybe talk a little bit about sort of those differences between those two options?
Yeah, that's right. So most of my income does come from writing for other people and providing content to other blogs. And the big difference is one of the things you find when you start realizing that you're writing for other people is you actually get paid sooner.
Right.
You get used to having this money that comes because you do the job and then they pay you. When you have your own blog, you really have to build it up. You have to put a lot of work into it, and then you have to wait. And sometimes you get the traffic and sometimes you don't. You have to worry about whether or not the AdSense is doing well this month, whether or not you're making your affiliate income so that they don't cut you off from the affiliate program. There's a lot of things to worry about. Plus you have to run the back end. So when you're writing for somebody else, it's different. You pretty much provide the content, you do a little bit of the promotion, and then they pay you for it. And that's one of the things with my situation is, since I didn't actually start my own blog until about 4 years ago. So I didn't have my own blog for several years at the time I was doing this freelancing thing. And one of the reasons why it's been hard for me to keep moving with my own blog is because I'm so used to getting paid.
Right.
But on the other hand, when you do have your own blog and you are making money on your own blog, your income potential is much higher. So you have a bigger potential for income. It's not capped. Whereas with mine is capped according to how much the client is paying me for my article and how many articles that that they're paying for, right? So I can't really, to a certain, I can control, like I can say, well, I want more work, I'll take on more clients, or I want to cut back on clients, I want to raise my rates. I can do kind of that stuff to adjust my income or adjust my work schedule, but there's always that certain cap on what I can make. Whereas with your own site, when you're getting your income from your own site, the more you put into it, the greater your potential. But at the same time, there's also that risk there.
For sure.
You may not ever make anything off of your own site.
Exactly. And it really takes, it can really take a long time to just, to get the traffic, to get the audience and all that. Versus in your case, if you're writing for a newspaper or magazine, some online source that already gets a lot of traffic, they already have that traffic. You don't have to really worry about that. So, for sure. And I guess it's also a good choice is if your goal is to be a writer, like it sounds like with you, your passion is writing.
Right. Yeah.
You consider yourself a writer first and a blogger probably second, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in those cases, it seems like being a freelance writer can be more of a fit if that's kind of your ultimate end goal, because that, you want to be a writer versus if you want to be a business person that has their own blog and maybe sells products on there and has affiliates, that kind of thing, so I think that's kind of a different person with different objectives. So it's not like one's better than the other. I think it's more what is it you're ultimately looking to achieve.
Yeah, right. What fits you? What's going to work best in your idea of what you want to have happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's really neat. And yeah, we had we have a really popular, we had a freelancing expert on as well. And yeah, that's one of the things he was saying was you really have to, the money comes a lot quicker. Whereas it could be, 6 months, it could be a year, it could be several years before you see any money if you're trying to build your own blog or any significant money whereas if you start freelancing, you could go full time, I would think pretty quickly, if you're able to get some of those clients.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So is the process different depending on which route you take? So if someone's just starting off, they're debating between taking the blogger kind of route or the sort of freelance route. And are things different? Are there different things they should really consider between the two? Well,
yeah, I guess. Well, and part of the thing though too is some of the things I would change is some of the things I've learned and some of the things that have changed about the landscape since I started is I would have started my own blog much sooner in my own idea, because really as a writer, as an online writer, as a freelance writer, you do need to have a home on the web. You just do now. It's just the way it is. I was fortunate in the time that I started that wasn't as necessary, but now it really is. So whether you're trying to build up your own blog and make revenue from your own blog and turn your own blog into a business, or whether you're just looking to find other clients to be most of your business, you still need to have a home on the web. So that's definitely what you need to do. And you need to make sure that you have some good examples of what you can do, and you need to make sure people can find you and know how to contact you. So that's something that's the same either way. You need to build up your home on the web. But for the most part, when it comes to, and actually there are a lot of similarities anyway, because you still want to build your network. You still need to build your reputation, because having your own website and building up your own business as a blogger, and just building your own business around your own blog, you still need to have a good reputation. Right. You still need to bring people. You still need to meet people and build those relationships with people if you're going to be successful. And it's the same thing with the freelancing. You need to have a good reputation or nobody will hire you. You need to build relationships with people so that you can find clients and so that you get good word of mouth. And you need to be able to build around that. So in a lot of ways, a lot of it's the same. The difference, I think, comes into how much focus you put on it. So if it comes down to a choice for me, if it comes down to a choice between doing client work and writing something for my own blog, I'm going to do the client work because that's what pays me. So it kind of depends on where you're putting your time. And so sometimes that kind of makes me feel sad because I'm like, well, I'm not investing in my own self as much as I, could be. But at the same time, I do need to do that client work and get the money. So a lot of it comes down to what your site's going to look like as well. And if you look at my site, I've got some ads and I've got a little bit of affiliate stuff going on, but I'm not selling a product. I'm not selling anything in particular, really. I just have a couple things that you can click on. And so my site the way you set up your site is probably going to look different. My site's set up to say, here I am and look at me because you want to hire me. Whereas,
Exactly.
whereas if you're setting up a site as the blog is your business, you're going to have it set up a little bit differently.
When you're deciding what to write, either for your own blog or for a freelancing client, how do you decide what to write so that you don't spend hours writing an article and then nobody actually cares about the subject that you're writing about, and therefore nobody actually reads or shares your article?
That's a terrible question to ask me, because I just sort of put out there what I think is interesting, and then we see what happens. No, when I'm writing for my own blogs, I pretty much think about, well, what sort of issues am I facing? What sort of issues did I face in the past? And one of the things, especially on my freelance writing website, a lot of the content that I write comes from questions people have asked me. So what are things that people want to know? What are things that people have emailed me and said, can you tell me how to do this? Or can you tell me about this? Or can you tell me the difference here? And so a lot of that comes from people who have asked me questions. And I started a really sad, low production values sort of video series with little freelance tidbits. It's on YouTube. Nobody watches it because I haven't promoted it at all. But well, thanks. But that whole series is entirely based on reader questions that I've gotten in emails. People who have said, I have this question. And usually I answer them back with something really quick, but then I'm like, well, yeah, even though I've sent them back an email that gave an answer, I'm like, well, maybe other people have this, and, I'll just make a video series out of it. So I did. And so I've been working on that. So a lot of my content just comes from things that people have asked me and what they want to know, or it comes from what I'm going through at the time. I find, with finances and with this writing stuff, and even just your regular life, when you're facing these issues, a lot of other people kind of have that fellow feeling. And so if you could say, well, this is how I'm dealing with it, it can help. So that's how I do a lot of my personal stuff.
What is the YouTube channel where you posted all the videos?
Oh, it's just, if you search Miranda Marquardt YouTube, you can find it. I have my own channel.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
I'm sure there's some special YouTube link, I guess. I can send it to you.
How do you determine what to charge? Should you charge hourly or per project? And how do you figure this out? I can see this being really challenging, as some people will charge next to nothing for their content, while someone like you charges a premium because of the higher quality of the content that you're generating.
Yeah, so that's really hard, because once again, you have to start with the going market rate. And the going market rate in online freelancing right now is just hugely wide. I mean, like you said, you can find people that'll write a 500-word post or article for $2.50. And then, of course, there are people who will charge $1,000 for that same 500-word article. Exactly. So it's really the Wild West right now. But you kind of need to start with, well, what is the going market rate? And do a little research and say, well, look at the job board, see. And you'll find that for a lot of freelance writers right now, you probably can expect to pay anywhere between $25 and $200 per article, to just sort of narrow it down just a little bit. That's still a pretty wide range.
Which is still a pretty wide range.
But you can narrow it down a little bit. But some of the factors that come into play when you're setting your rates, they sort of depend on, first of all, your own experience and your own reputation and where you stand. So part of that goes into there. If you're an expert on the subject, if you've got some sort of professional background. So I don't have a financial credential. I'm not a financial planner. I don't have an MBA. I don't have, those kinds of credentials, but I've been in this space for 9 years.
Right.
So I have that. Or, somebody who decides to write science stuff, like Neil deGrasse Tyson. If he goes to write a science article, he's going to get paid way more than I am for writing a science article. I started out as a science writer. That first year I was freelancing, it was mostly sciencey stuff before I moved into finances. Mm-hmm. And so he's going to get paid more because he has that credential. So you have to look at your own background and your own credentials. You also need to look at your own abilities and the quality of your writing. Like you mentioned, it is possible to go on a site and find somebody who's going to do the same thing for $5. And you know what? If you want to pay $5 and do it, that's cool. But the quality may not be that great. So you have to think about that. You have to say, well, what are my credentials? What is my experience? What is the quality that I can offer? And part of the credentials, too, even though I'm not a financial person, I have a journalism background. So I can say, well, I've been trained as a journalist. And in some cases, they're like, oh, that's a nice credential. That at least, you've had this sort of training in this type of writing. So that's at least worth a little bit of a premium, as opposed to somebody who's just like, hey, I like to write. It's a terrible thing
I write
to say.
emails all the time,
right.
so I must know how to write.
It's a terrible thing to say because it sounds really snooty, but at the same time, you have to say, well, what is something that I have that sets me apart?
Right.
And when I first started out in the online writing space, having that journalism background really set me apart. It doesn't set me apart very much now because more and more journalists are moving to online space and it's becoming more of an independent type thing as the print world changes. But when I first started out, that was a selling point. You need to look and say, well, what is my selling point? What sets me apart? And that I can say, well, I can ask more because of X, Y, and Z. So the other thing to think about too is, how much research and how much work has to go into this. So I charge more for articles that require me to interview somebody or that require me to do like primary research. Like if I have to go and look into the National Bureau of Economic Research and pull out papers and go through these papers and look at the data, I will charge more for that because I have to do more research. So that goes into it too. So there are lots of things that go into setting your rates. As a writer, I prefer to get paid by the article. So I figure out how much I think I should be paid for an article depending on, and I've got it broken out too. This is roughly how much you're going to pay for a basic article. This is roughly how much you're going to pay if I have to do research or interview a primary source, that kind of thing. So it's this really intricate process, and I wish I could be like, here's how to do it. But
right. And I'm sure there's a lot of experimentation that happens as well. It's not like you knew exactly, how much to charge. And when you have all these different variables, like, oh, I have to interview someone. Oh, plus I have to pull some stats and do some research. Oh, then it's obviously going to be X amount more. So you're saying, you don't really know right away. So do you have like a set where you say, okay, so roughly day to day, I make X per hour when I'm writing. Even though I'm getting paid per article, I make X per hour of work. So if it takes me, let's say, an extra hours because I have to interview someone, I have to prepare the questions, I have to then edit it, all of that, let's say, then do you sort of apply that rate to that extra amount, and that's how you come up with your rate, or do you just sort of ballpark it and see what happens?
Yeah.
Or something
so part of it has to do with that. Part of that is I am sort of to the point where I'm like, well, this is my average hourly cost because this is how long it takes me to produce an article, and this is how much I want to make per hour. So, and this is how much I would get paid elsewhere. So kind of I know that I'm worth this much, basically. As well, right? So there's some element to that, and then part of that, some of the element is just. So Tom Drake from Canadian Finance Blog is my business partner, and he told me a couple of years ago. He said, add $50 to the next client, right? So right now, my way of setting rates is basically when somebody new asks me for my rate, I add whatever, $50, $100, whatever, to what the last client paid, and then see what they say.
Oh, okay.
So you can kind of increment it up that way too, and just be like, so if somebody
to find that ceiling,
right?
Yeah,
you can find that ceiling for now, and if you have too many people saying no, then you're like, well, then maybe I just need to add $25 to my rate or whatever. So you can kind of step it back. So a lot of it is adjusting things, because you'll also get different things depending on who's doing the asking. A major brand will pay you more than an independent blogger, for instance. So I can't charge an independent blogger that I'm doing staff writing for at the same rate that I charge a major brand that I'm doing writing for, because the independent blogger can't afford that. So then you have to decide, well, where do I want to focus my clients? How do I want to do that? I mean, I built my reputation with independent bloggers, but I've shifted more now to larger brands. I do more of my writing for larger brands now than independent bloggers. So it's kind of moved. Right. And has it moved because, well, they pay more, right? But hard to get into that
to sort of get into that circle right away. So would you say that you've kind of built your way up to get to that level where, you start off at maybe some of these smaller, less well-known brands or some smaller time financial bloggers, let's say, and then you build up your reputation, you get some good testimonials, your portfolio is getting built up, and then you basically get on that next sort of, get to that next level once you've you've played around in that one sandbox. You sort of get into that next one where, okay, now I'm ready to escalate because, I have that brand, I have reputation, I have that portfolio. I can charge more now after these harder clients.
Right, exactly. And that's really how it works, is just building that reputation, getting to know people, doing some networking, and just being involved in your community. Because the other thing you have to consider when setting your rates is, am I doing general purpose writing or am I in a niche?
Right.
And when you're doing general purpose writing and you're like, well, I'm a utilitarian writer, you might have more work and you might be able to do more things because you'll have more breadth, but you may not get paid as much. So when you're in a niche and you're well known in your niche, then you have that reputation and you can actually charge more for that. So in the personal finance niche, I charge more, and I'm a very niche writer. And when the personal finance niche implodes, I am in so much trouble. But and that's part of one of the reasons moving to brands. But when you have that niche, then you can say, well, I'm a specialist, and specialists get paid more. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other thing. So I'm like, well, I have a niche. I kind of went this way. I went into the financial niche and I get paid more because I'm a specialist in this niche. So even though I'm not like a money expert, I am an expert on writing about money. So, right. So I don't have those credentials that say, hey, I've got this MBA, I'm a financial planner, whatever. I don't have those credentials, but I'm an expert at writing about money. I know this subject. I know what to write about and how to write about it. And so that kind of brings you a premium as well.
For somebody that wants to get into this but doesn't have any sort of credentials, like from a fancy college, for example, maybe they didn't study journalism in school and aren't sure how to really set themselves apart, would one way to do that be to guest post on other people's sites so that they are basically building their portfolio of work and building their credibility as an expert in the field?
Yeah, that can definitely help. I think before you can go guest posting, though, you do need to lay groundwork, because more and more guest posting is, in the early days, like 7-8 years ago, guest posting was like the wild, wild west, right? You're like, hey, let's exchange guest posts. And pretty much anybody you talk to would be like, yes, let's exchange guest posts. Now it's different. People are like, this blog is my identity. This is who I am. We need to vet these people. We need to be careful. And so you can't just go and be a guest post anywhere. So what you need to do is lay the groundwork. First of all, you're best off if you're like, well, I want to be in this niche, or I want to cover this niche, or I want to be in charge of the subject. Your blog needs to reflect that. Mm-hmm. So, because once again, in today's world, I really think that you need to have your own home on the web. You need to have your own blog, your own site, whether you're going to go and be a freelancer or not. I mean, this is why I finally decided to start my own blog and get my own homes going on the web, because I'm like, well, I need to actually have a home on the web if I'm going to do this. And so that's what you need to start out with, is you need to start out with your home on the web. And you need to say, well, if I'm going to do this, and if I'm going to, So, if I'm going to do this and I'm still going to be on there, then, you can build your reputation on your own blog. So that's where you start. You start there, build up your thoughts on that. If you write some really well-researched, cogent things for your blog, then that's a good thing you can point to. Mm-hmm. So once you have a few posts about that subject there, then you go out and you interact with people in that niche, right? You interact with people about that subject. So in my case, I went out and interacted with people about money. I visited their blogs. I left comments on their blogs. Things are a little bit different now. Now you would follow them on Twitter and at them or something, or follow their Facebook page, right? And engage on their Facebook page. You don't want to stalk. I mean, you have to draw that line and say, right? You have to say, you don't want to pester them all the time, but you have to get out there and get involved. So one of the reasons and you have to go where they are online, right? So back in the day when I started out, one of the places that a lot of people in the finance world they were on this website called Tipped, and it was a social bookmarking site that focused on business and finance. And so I was there, I was active, I was voting on other people's things, I was submitting things, and I was active. And then also I was leaving comments on other people's blogs, right? So then you kind of get your name out there and build these connections. And nowadays, there are, you can go and you can follow somebody's Facebook page and make comments. You can retweet, you follow them on Twitter and retweet some of their stuff. So there are things that you can do to engage. And so you start engaging. And one of the other things you can do now is meet people in person. It's a wild, wild world now, because back 10 years ago, the whole point of the internet was like, you never have to meet anybody in person, right? If you're working online and you're an online writer, the whole beauty of the internet was you didn't have to actually meet anyone, right? But now, as we've developed and these online communities are even greater, we have this desire. We're humans. We're social animals. And we're like, we want to connect with them on this personal level that involves meeting them in person.
Right.
So that's what you do. And every major city has meetup groups, and you can find them. You can find bloggers in your niche and get to know them. So there's a lot of groundwork laying that goes in before you can start asking for blog posts. And guest posts. There's just a lot of stuff you have to do. And so you lay this groundwork and you have something to show them to say, hey, yes, I am a person who can comment about this in a cogent manner, and I can write. I have good spelling. And that's the other thing. Make sure you clean up your spelling and your grammar and your punctuation. Clean it all up. Make sure you're doing that properly, because that makes an impression. If somebody comes to your website, and yeah, you're always going to have typos. You're always going to misspell something. I have stuff that I misspell, or I have a typo, or I leave a word out. Everybody has that on occasion. But if your site is riddled with them, they're going to look at it and say, yeah, no, I don't want this blog post.
Right.
I don't want this person guest posting on my blog. So you got to build the connections. So you have to establish your foundation and say, look, I've got a blog about this, and I can comment intelligently about this. And when I'm on social media, I comment intelligently about this. And now I'm engaging you, and we are engaged, and we have this bond. And now I can ask if I can do a guest post.
Right. Yeah, and I can see too, if you have your own blog and you publish a really good article, and there are a few really good articles, and those are getting shared, they're getting spread around. Maybe somebody features it. Let's say, like I know I was featured on an article, and then Yahoo Finance Canada picked it up, right? So so you get like these kind of things happen to you. Where someone else picks it up, and then it obviously that increases your credibility a lot as well, because now they see, oh, okay, well, if it's good enough for Yahoo or whoever or Wall Street, whoever it is that's a kind of big time, plays, then that I can see that really kind of opening some doors for you as well.
Right. Yeah. So you do. You just need to keep working on that. But I really think the relationships are the most important things.
Yeah.
You can't just go cold and be like, hey, you should take my guest post. You can't. You have to have a relationship, because people want to know you before they put your words and have you help represent them.
That's a great tip, yeah, because I can see how some people might get discouraged where they try this, they reach out to a few blogs, and they don't even get a response back through email or however, right? And then they get frustrated and think, okay, this isn't working, this sucks, I just got rejected by like 10 different blogs. This is, but then you've never interacted with them before, they don't know who you are, you've never met them. So I can see that being, like you said, to lay the groundwork first instead of just asking right away.
Right, and that's the thing, is so many people now get emails. We're all inundated by emails from people wanting something. I don't even know. I can't even count how many emails I get per day from people wanting
eventually
me.
Stop counting.
Right, yeah. They want me to review this thing. They want me to post this thing. They want me to talk about this thing. And then the press releases and the PR people, and your inbox is just full. And you can't, you'd like to. I would like to. I would like to sit down and write a nice, polite, I'm sorry, I don't know you, let's get to know each other better, and then maybe I'll think about it type letter to everybody who sends me something. But I can't. I don't have hours in the day.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I would spend all of my time answering these emails. If I wrote a nice, polite rejection or a nice, polite, well, let's get to know each other and then try again to everybody. It would take up all my time, and then I wouldn't make any money, and my son would starve, and we'd be out on the street. So and you have to remember that. You have to put yourself in the shoes of somebody who you're approaching and saying, well, if they don't know you, but if I get something from somebody, I'm like, oh, yes, I remember meeting this person at a conference. Oh, yes, we were at that same meetup. Or, oh, yes, I've seen this person around the internet. They added me on Twitter, and, they retweeted this article of mine and had a nice little comment or something like that. I could say, oh, yeah, I recognize that person.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just we're all inundated with all of this email, and we can't, it'd be nice, but we can't.
So I wanted to ask you about one of the things I picked up in your book. You said how at this point, you're basically now able to charge about 10 times more than you did when you initially started. And I thought that's an interesting subject to talk about, because I could see how if someone's just starting out and they're saying, oh, well, I spent all this time on this article and I'm only getting paid $20. This isn't a good use of my time. And, they get frustrated because, you don't get to those, $500 article or higher kind of level overnight, right? So how long did it take you to get to that level where, you're able to really, make some significant money there? And what do you think made it that allowed you to do that?
Yeah, so the first 3 to 4 years that I don't have an exact timeline because it starts to get fuzzy right as it goes farther back. But no, for the first 3 to 4 years, I didn't make a whole lot. And I was kind of in that boat where I'm like, really? Come on. But yeah, so that's part of it. So it takes time, and you're not going to just be able to snap your fingers, and there is no magical solution to fixing this. You just have to keep going. And so part of it was, so for the first 3 to 4 years, I didn't get paid that much. And I would just, I'd keep trying to charge a little bit more. And as you build your portfolio and as you have more things you can point to, and as a writer, as you keep writing, you get better.
Right.
I mean, you just do. The practice helps you improve.
And you start building a following as well. And
And as that starts to happen and you start to gain momentum, then you can start charging a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But so I didn't get to that point. So for the first 3 or 4 years, it was a lot of just toiling and just why? But just keeping and sticking with it and just doing what I could. And then after 3 or 4 years, I started saying, well, people started instead of coming to me and saying, this is what we will pay you, and instead of me having to just apply for just jobs that are like, this is what we will pay you, people started coming to me and saying, how much do you charge?
Right.
But it took 3 or 4 years to get to that point.
And to have people actually contact you, as opposed to you now having to go out there and say, hey, look what I can do.
Right.
Hire me, right? Like just to be able to switch it over like that.
Yeah, and it did. It took 3 or 4 years to even get to the point where some people were doing that. Right. It was probably, around the 6 year or so mark, 6 or 7 year mark, before I actually got to the point where I didn't have to. It was, probably around 6 years or so, where I got to the point where I didn't have to actually apply for jobs anymore.
Right.
And people just came to me first, and they asked me about, what I could do, what I was available for, and all of that kind of stuff. So it did. It took a few years to get to that point. So it was probably about 6 years before I could really start upping my rates and really start saying, this is what I charge. I'm willing to bend a little bit on the price and we can have a little bit of a negotiation, but don't negotiate with me too far because I can walk away.
Right.
But it did. It took probably about 6 years to get to that point. So that's the thing is, and so many people today, they hear these overnight success stories. Yeah. And what's that saying? I don't remember, but there's that saying that says, that overnight success was, preceded by years of hard work, right?
Exactly. To the onlooker, it looks like it was overnight success, but that person's probably been working at this for an extremely long amount of time, building those skills, building all that to get to that level. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and And that's the thing. So, and a lot of people used to be like, oh, well, I see your name everywhere. How did you, I want to be that. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll see you in 6 years.
Exactly.
It's like I didn't wake up one morning and all of a sudden, I was critical mass in the personal finance world. Yeah. Right. So that's the thing is it requires, the desire to just keep going and plugging away. And now it is a little bit easier to get to that point a little bit sooner if you can go out. And once again, it's about those relationships and meeting people and building relationships with people and just getting out there. Well, and that's the thing is there's so much out there now that it's like, yeah, you can write this amazing, wonderful thing and you can be the greatest writer in the world, but people aren't just going to show up there, which is why, I kind of joke about my YouTube thing because like nobody knows it's there, but I haven't done anything to like promote it. I haven't gone out there to be like, hey, look at what I have. This is pretty much right here with you right now. It's pretty much the first time I've been like, hey, look at what I have. So
we're trying to get you some views on that YouTube channel.
Yeah, right. But that's the thing. So you have to, you kind of have to, and it's really for a lot of writers who, a lot of us tend to kind of be a little bit introverted and we tend to not want to, go out there and say, look at me.
Right.
That's hard. It's hard to have to like go out and say, I am going to go put this on social media and I am going to try and promote this and I'm going to ask other people to help me with this. It's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard. And I still struggle. I still struggle with that. I still have a hard time with that aspect of it.
Miranda, once you have, let's say, your content out there, I mean, speaking of promoting it, once you have your content out there, let's say you wrote a really great article and you think this could sort of be maybe get you some contracts in the future, some freelance gigs. What's working well for you these days in terms of how you promote your content and your work?
Yeah, I'm terrible. I am the worst. I still don't really, the best I can do is be like, hey, I'm going to tweet this out like
you seem
for 3 days.
Pretty Twitter savvy. You seem pretty Twitter.
And the sad thing is I'm not even the one tweeting them out anymore. I have a VA who does it for me.
I just told him, I'm like, wow, Miranda's really on her game. To my defense, it is my sister. Okay.
And so she knows me really well.
Right.
So she does a really good job of like, this is Miranda. But no, a lot of it, and I do tell her like, I do give her like, here's what I want promoted specifically. Here are some of the hashtags I want to use, that kind of thing. So there's that. And then I do make an effort. So even though she's the one who does the tweeting and the scheduling and looking at that stuff, I do make an effort to go back and say, well, who is sending me ats, who is sending me direct messages and getting back to them. Mm-hmm. So I do make an effort to go through and do that and, engage. So I do kind of have that. It's sort of this hybrid thing where I don't have it turned over completely to somebody else, mm-hmm. but I do have her help me manage it because social media is it can suck up your time. It just sucks it away. But really a lot of it just has to do with, comes down to, writing with my voice on my personal things and, letting people kind of get to know me a little bit and being willing to kind of engage. But yeah, I don't do a whole lot of going out there and, a lot of promotion. And I don't go out there and say, I don't write something and say, oh, I'm going to make this viral.
Right.
If you read my headlines, they're all very boring. And there's no BuzzFeed headlines here for Miranda. It's just because I don't write anything with the intention of, oh, this is going to go viral. I write it with the intention of this is what I feel and this is what I think will be useful.
Right.
And that's my own personal things. And then, of course, when you're writing for somebody else, it's their job. Right? Like your client is like, unless they're paying you specifically for promotion, which should be something that's different. As a freelance writer writing for somebody else, you're like, okay, yes, I will tweet this. Yes, I will post it on Facebook that I've written this thing. And I will make sure that, on my author page or whatever, I will point to your website that says this is where I write.
Right.
You can do that. But don't let them say, oh, well, you need to go into a full-blown promotion campaign for each post you write for me.
Right.
That's separate. Okay, so promotion and writing are two separate things. And while as a freelance writer, you do need to say, yes, there's some aspect of promotion that I need to do. And it does make sense as a writer to be like, oh, yes, look at this thing I wrote for somebody else. That makes sense because that does help you as well. Going out there and trying to make them go viral, that's not your job.
Right.
That's their promotion person's job. That's their marketing job. And so make sure that you kind of, draw that line there. It's somebody else's job to make it go viral, which is why I'm a terrible person to ask about promotion, right? Because for the most part, I'm writing for other people, and it's their, they have marketing departments and they have promotion people, and it's the other person, if they've given me an article that they want written and I write that article for them, it's their job to make it promoted. So.
Right, and I can see that being a kind of a mistake where somebody's just starting off, they're getting paid, let's say $5 or something to write an article, and then the client comes back and says, oh, okay, now I need you to promote it using these means, right? And then, so now they expect you to spend hours promoting it afterwards, right? So, although I remember in your book you did mention how the whole promotion thing is something that you can actually work into your agreement with them to actually increase your rates as well. So if you have you have a really good Twitter following, right?
Right, yeah.
You can actually use that as a leverage point to say, look, I will tweet it out, I will do this. But to do that, it actually costs extra, right? Because now they're basically getting people, you're bringing them an audience as well.
Right.
So I thought that was a really neat tactic. If you are good at social media, if you have a big following, you can leverage that as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can definitely use it as a value add kind of proposition.
Yeah. And especially if you're in that specialist in that niche, right? Like in your case, you're personal finance. So writing personal finance, I mean, it's very valuable for them, for you to promote it, put it on your blog, link to it, all that, because you already have a following as well.
Right.
So it's a really natural fit. Yeah, but
as you know, but still, I have a hard time with those promotion things. And so it's really not something that's in my wheelhouse. It's not something that I really do.
Right. Well, you're a writer first and foremost.
Right. Exactly.
Right? That's your thing. Yeah. Gotcha. So, and then you mentioned as well, too, that you kind of had this fear of self-promotion, I guess, in the beginning, and now you're kind of getting – what are some things that have helped you get over that sort of fear of self-promotion? I remember in your book you talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm still not really over it.
It's like work in progress.
It is a work in progress.
Yeah.
No, I tried. Oh, my gosh. So – So we were having lunch with somebody I didn't know previously. We had just met him, and I was with a couple of good friends of mine, Tom, of course, from Canadian Finance Blog, and Steve Chu from My Wife Quit Her Job. And we were with this kind of new acquaintance to me, and we were standing in line and talking, and I didn't know him very well. This new guy, I didn't know him at all. And I was talking to him, and he was like, oh, well, do you know so-and-so? And I was just like, and I said, I'm not even going to say what I said because it's so embarrassing. But, Steve was looking at me because Steve and Tom have both really been big on saying, Miranda, you need to promote yourself more. You need to hype yourself up a little bit more.
Right.
They're like, you don't need to be like overbearing or whatever, but you do. You need to own your awesome a little bit more, right?
That's an awesome quote, by the way. Oh, you're awesome. I like that.
Oh my gosh. And so Steve's looking at me like, what's she going to say? So I said just something awful, and it was kind of tongue in cheek, but it was also kind of just like this really sort of brag kind of thing. And I'm just like, and then I just turned bright red. I could feel my face heating up, and I'm like, I will not be bragging about myself anytime soon. For a long time. It was just terrible. My attempts to be like, yeah, I'm awesome are really sad. So, and they always come off just wrong. So I'm a little socially awkward. So you combine the social awkwardness with this like desire to try and then in the back of your mind you have this crippling fear that you're going too far. And so you have all of this mixing together. So no, I still have problems with that self-promotion thing, but I'm getting a little bit better about it. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a baby step thing where I'm like, where if I've written something that I think will really help somebody, that's something I pick and say, hey, this is really useful. And I wrote this and I think it could help you. And I'm better about saying that, saying this is a useful thing.
Right.
And it's sort of baby stepping, which is a big step for me, because in the past I would have been just like, I would have been just put it on Twitter or put it on Facebook and not had any sort of comment with it.
Oh, okay.
And, I would have just kind of quietly put it up there and gone away. And now I'm like, no, now I'm like, this is this thing that I wrote that is useful and helpful, and you should go see it. So I'm sort of baby stepping that way. I still have a hard time. And occasionally I'll even email somebody and be like, I need your help promoting this. Would you mind tweeting this for me? I've started doing that a little bit.
Right.
I am nowhere near the level of other people who are just like, who seem to be able to just be like, hey, I've got this new thing going. I'm going to email 50 of my closest friends and ask for them ask for their help. I can't do that still. I still have a hard time with that. So I can't help you there. All I can say is baby step and sort of learn to recognize that, yes, you do have something to offer, and then start trying to just offer that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then are there any other challenges that you see a lot of aspiring full-time writers cross, or common mistakes that you see basically they're trying to hit the level you're at, and you just sort of see them hit these challenges or make certain mistakes? Is there anything like that to hopefully help maybe prevent some of the pain people go through in their rise to the top?
Well, honestly, to tell the truth, from my perspective, I always go back to the Princess Bride quote, "Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who tells you different is selling something." It's just, I would love to say there's this magical thing where you don't have to go through this painful, horrible process. But the truth is, I recognize that I came into this online writing thing at a very good time. I came in when there weren't very many people doing this professionally, and I came in before it was big news, right? Mm-hmm. Like right now, it's crowded. The whole place is crowded with people who want to be writers and do this online, because it's great. I mean, it is. You can be location independent. You can, do all this stuff. And there's still plenty of jobs for everyone. I try and, and I don't view other writers as like competition. And I think that's probably the first thing you need to do, is say, we're all in this together. And I have a long list of other writers who, when I turn down a job, or if I don't have room for it or something like that, when I turn down a job, I can go in this list and I can say, oh, so-and-so is at the top of I rotate the list, it's like this rotate.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm like, so-and-so is at the top of the list, so I will recommend them for this job.
Oh, okay.
And so I think part of it is you really do have to realize that you're all in it together. And, there's this sort of, this sort of inclination to say, oh, well, we're all competing. And it is. The online world's a little weird in that, yes, you are kind of competing because, you're all applying for the same jobs, right? You all went to the ProBlogger job board, and you're all applying for the same job. But at the same time, you do need to help each other, and you need to work with each other and promote each other's stuff. I promote other writers' things. Like I said, I recommend them. I've had several different writers, thank me for helping them, find gigs and all that kind of stuff. So I think one of the best things you can do is just, build those relationships and kind of realize that we're all in this together and sort of try and help each other. And
then you're learning from each other too.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah. And you just, I don't know. And a lot of it is just, you just have to hang in there. It's just, they talk about the novelists, right? The novelists who slaves and slaves and slaves for years and years before they finally get their bestseller or whatever. And it's the same thing in the online freelance writing world. You do crappy jobs that you hate doing for a few years. I didn't like writing keyword articles about window treatments for 2 years. That was not work that I enjoyed doing. It was not high-minded writing that I liked to do, but it paid the bills. And that's the thing, is you need to decide, well, am I going to just do this and pay the bills right now and go for it? In which case, you sign up for those, you sign up for Text Broker, or you sign up for Writer Access, or you sign up for Demand Media, and you do those things, right? Just so that you can get your paycheck, and then on the side, on your own blog, you build up your own reputation on the side. Mm-hmm. Or if you're like, well, I want to make it as a freelance writer writing all these high-minded things, then you're like, well, then I keep my regular job and do this as a side gig until I've built that reputation. So you have to decide which path you're going to take. And since I decided, well, I'm going to be a freelancer and I'm going to work from home and I'm going to make this work, I did. I wrote keyword articles about window treatments and hardwood flooring and plumbing for years to pay the bill.
I just saw your eyes light up when you said plumbing. That must have really been exciting for you. Miranda's secret passion. Plumbing, everyone.
But that's the thing. So
she goes to Home Depot every weekend.
Right. So yeah, so you just have to stick with it. If this is what you want to do, then you stick with it. You either do the crappy jobs so that you can get paid while you're doing this other stuff on the side and building up your reputation so you can eventually write what you want to write. Or you have a real job and you write what you want to write until you get to that point where you can pay the bills.
Right.
But it all comes down to the same thing. If you want to make your living as a freelance writer writing things that you like writing, you have to do something somewhere. You're doing something crappy to pay the bills. You're either writing content that you don't want to write or you've got a real job.
Right.
I'm sorry. That's just,
That's the reality.
I'm sorry I'm not giving you your follow your bliss whatever thing. I'm too old for that, I guess. I'm a jaded Gen Xer.
Well, it's realistic, right? As opposed to, I'm going to quit my job tomorrow and write about one subject that I love that no one's really paying money to write about. Anyway. I'm
going to do what I love, and the money's going to follow me. No, it probably won't. You're going to have to do something you hate while you build up the thing that you love, and eventually the thing that you love will pay you. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't just happen.
So hopefully you like your job.
Yeah.
And then on the side you can write about your passion or whatever it is you want. Or take sort of the Miranda approach where you say, okay, let's go all in as a freelance writer and let's do it. And sure, I won't like some of the jobs, but I'm building a portfolio, I'm building an experience, I'm building contacts within the different industries, right? So there's advantages and disadvantages each. Sure.
That's right.
Just now when you were answering, you mentioned some places that you can go to find work, to find different gigs. Can you list some of the more popular ones and also maybe make some recommendations of the places you'd recommend people start if they're looking to get into this?
Right, yeah. So one of my favorite places to go, I like the ProBlogger job board. That's problogger.net, and they have a job board. I like mediabistro.com. I like freelancewritinggigs.com. And then 1099mom.com also puts together regular lists of jobs that you can apply for. So these are good places to start looking for jobs you can apply for. If you are looking to start producing content, there are sites, they're called text brokers. So basically they're these just huge, they're kind of like warehouses, right, for articles where they just have these articles that they need written and they provide content to various sites. And so some of those there's one of them called textbroker.com. There is writeraccess.com, and there's contentrunner.com. And these sites don't pay very well, but you can usually get a lot of work because the demand is there. Some sites like Textbroker and Writer Access administer a test to you. And so if you take this writing test, and if they put you in the higher tier, then you can get paid more.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then finally, there are also other content production platforms that are higher tier, they're higher end. There's a lot of vetting that goes involved with these because they're higher paying. Contently.com and skyward.com are two content creation platforms that come with higher paying jobs. But a lot of the time you're going to be vetted ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So you kind of, like with Contently especially, they'll look at your portfolio and people will come and look and kind of offer you jobs. So it's nice to be on those sites, but you may not get work through them.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that's a great tip. And even if you're not a writer, I could see that being useful, because if you want someone to write something for you, perhaps, then that's a good spot to go and try to find people that write within your niche or specialty, because maybe they want to promote themselves a bit and write a guest post for you, or you pay them to write certain articles as well. So that's great.
And I didn't mention, I mean, I know there are freelance bidding marketplaces.
All right, yep.
I hate them, so that's why I didn't mention them.
Out of sheer hatred.
I did it. I did I don't know, maybe two or three articles on one of those bidding sites, and I hate them because basically you're lowballing yourself, right? It's like a race to the bottom for pay, and then on top of that, a cut of what you're making, which is nothing, goes, practically nothing, is peanuts, goes to the freelance marketplace. I hate the freelance marketplaces. I know lots of people do very well off of them, and that's cool, If the freelance writer marketplace is your bag and you do fine off of it, that's great. But I would go to a text broker website before I went to a freelance marketplace.
And speaking of your book, can you tell us more about where we can find it, as well as where listeners can learn more from you?
Yeah, so my book is called Confessions of a Professional Blogger. It's available on Amazon. You can get it in paperback, or it's available on Kindle. So just go to Amazon and look for it. And it's just a really quick read. It's really pretty short. It's like 100 pages. And it's just a basic handbook on how to get started freelance writing. And it's just a very realistic, practical way that almost anyone can get started. And there's nothing glamorous. There's nothing fantastic. This is not here's how to build your money-making website. This is just how, practically speaking, you can start as a freelance writer. It's just kind of a handbook that says, here you go. Mm-hmm. And so I've had people be like, oh, well, I wanted to know how to make money quickly and be glamorous. And I'm like, no, this is not the book for you. This is not a book about, how to be famous and glamorous and start your lifestyle business. This is just the nitty gritty reality of what it's like. And then I blog on mirandamarquit.com. I blog about freelance writing and how you can become a freelance writer, and I talk about different issues. Sometimes I rant. I'm told that my rants are amusing. So sometimes I rant about things that bother me. So head on over there and you can learn about how I feel about PR people. So, and then
that's a really popular article. I was checking out your top posts, and that one went up there.
Everybody loves that.
Was pretty high up there.
Yeah, everybody loves that rant about PR people. So check that out. And then if you want to get my take on money, I write at plantingmoneyseeds.com. And of course, we have to plug our show, moneymastermindshow.com, live every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Good stuff. For someone that doesn't like promoting all that much, I think you did a really good job.
Well, I'm trying, right? This is the grand experiment right here.
And thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right, bye, Miranda.
Bye-bye.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed the interview with Miranda. Once again, her book is called Confessions of a Professional Blogger. I definitely enjoyed it. It's definitely kind of a good dose of reality, I think, for anybody aspiring to sort of go into that, just so that you know what you're getting into. And Miranda definitely has a lot of years of experience when it comes to that. Also, like I mentioned before, the guides are finally fully completed. They're all ready to go. Basically, the whole course, the step-by-step video course on how to start your own side business in Canada is done, as well as how to build your own site here in Canada as well. So those guides are fully available to you. Like I said, they're totally free. You don't even have to give me your email or anything like that. Feel free to check them out. I try to make them as high quality as possible. It's buildwealthcanada.ca/business if you want to learn how to start kind of a side hustle or business on the side here in Canada. Or if you just want to learn how to build a website, maybe you're kind of an aspiring freelancer or blogger or online entrepreneur, or maybe you're just, you're a contractor, you want to have your own site, or maybe, you're an employee and, maybe you want to look for a job elsewhere and you think that a website will give, if you have a website showing off your portfolio, that could really help you out as well. So, you can use kind of the skills covered in that course for anything like that. And the URL for that is buildwealthcanada.ca/build. All right. So have a wonderful week, and I will be in touch with you soon. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Build Wealth Canada podcast at www.buildwealthcanada.ca.